almost 23 years ago to the day, I graduated from university and earned my teaching degree. I remember that senior year of college. I remember that the World Wide Web first became available to us during that year. Prior to that, the internet for me was a green and black screen, a monochrome screen, where I could send email and get weather, and that was it. But for the first time, I could see pictures, and the internet came to life. That was in the midst of the internet age, the third industrial revolution. And right now, our schools are still not well prepared for that time. Yet, technology is progressing at an exponential rate, and we're now entering the fourth industrial revolution, where biotechnology, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and many other technological advancements are impacting all sectors of the world, including education. You've probably heard a lot of fear over people losing their jobs to machines. Certainly I have heard fear from within the teaching ranks. People are afraid that teachers are going to lose their jobs and that we're going to have machines teaching children. But according to the World Economic Forum, there's a very low likelihood that that's going to happen. Elementary teachers are down the bottom, and there's, I believe, two reasons for that. The first is that no machine could make as many decisions or deal with as much data as we do as teachers every day. And the second is that no machine will ever be able to love students the way that we love students. And that's the most important thing. As a father, my daughter happens to be here in the audience. As a father, I want a human teacher who loves my child teaching them every day. Right now, the technological advancements that are going on around us are causing ethical dilemmas. And we need to prepare our students for the world that they're going to graduate into. Some of you may have heard just a few weeks ago, there is a technology called CRISPR, where we can now change the DNA of embryos in utero. And that presents all kinds of ethical dilemmas. But about 2 weeks ago, there was a report that an American scientist of Chinese descent went to China and actually manipulated the DNA of 2 embryos to make them resistant to HIV because the father had HIV and they were worried about the children. Now, I am not a medical ethics expert, but what I know is that the children that I'm teaching right now are going to graduate into a world when they are going to be voting for politicians that are going to have to make decisions as to whether that's legal or not. And right now, I don't believe our school system is well prepared to have them make those decisions down the road. A few years ago, I traveled to Kenya, and during my trip, I went to Maasai village. For some of you, you may have heard of the Maasai warriors. They're fierce warriors. They have huge swords in Kenya and Tanzania. But I was interested in that village of how the children were educated. And I asked my guide who was standing next to me there, I said, tell me about the education of children in your village. And what he said to me is that the well-being of children is paramount. And that when one Maasai meets another, whether they're from the same village or another, whether they're a grandmother or the fiercest warrior in the village, they greet each other the same way, Kaseri and Ngera. And what it means is, how are the children? That's how they measure the success of their society. And the hoped-for response is, all of the children are well. And right now I worry because in our global society, all of our children are not well. We have increasing suicide rates. In the United States, this is a heartbreaking map. It shows all of the school shootings since 2013, when more than 20 children were shot, 20 elementary children were shot in Sandy Hook in Connecticut. All of our children are not well right now. There's a lot of talk about how we can use virtual reality and artificial intelligence to improve education. And I don't necessarily think that technological advancement is a bad thing for us in schools. But before we start looking to virtual and augmented reality or artificial intelligence as solutions, we must make sure that our children are prepared to deal with actual reality and that they have emotional and authentic intelligence. A couple of years ago, Johnson & Johnson did a study, and they looked at the most successful people in business. And they looked to see what is the character trait that those successful people have in common. And I've asked audiences all around the world what they think that trait was, and I've heard grit and determination, being really smart and being able to pass standardized tests. But the fact of the matter is, the character trait that most successful people have is empathy and emotional intelligence. Yet in all my time, in my 22 years of being a teacher, I have not had one faculty meeting on how to make sure that our children are building empathy in the classroom. That's a problem. We need to shift focus on what we do in schools. One of the points that we make in the first chapter of the book is that in order to find future prosperity, we must find the intersection between keeping our schools technologically relevant and making sure that education stays rooted in the things that are most important: humanity, empathy, and compassion. The way that we do that is by combining the design process that engineers often use. We've heard a lot about how we want our children to learn from mistakes and not see failure as the end, but to see it as a learning opportunity. Engineers are great at this. They start by defining the problem, they brainstorm, they come up with solutions, and they try it, they test it out. And if it doesn't work, they look for where it didn't work and they make it better. And we can apply that as teachers to how we build our lessons, but we can also teach our students how to apply this to the world that they see outside of their classroom. When we layer this with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we teach our kids to look at problems in the world with a critical eye and to see how the learning that they do in their classroom fits the problems that are outside their classroom so that they can use the design process to make the world better, that's when education becomes what we need it to be in order to move forward into the fourth industrial revolution. So I want to end by just sharing a story with you of how this looked in my classroom. A couple of years ago, we had a Skype call where we connected with a school in rural western Kenya, out by the Uganda border. And it started as just a game. I was teaching science at the time and I wanted my children to learn animal classification. So we played a game where the Kenyan children chose an animal, and we chose an animal, and we would ask yes or no questions back and forth to see who could guess the other's animal first. But after that call, the school director took us on a tour of his village. And the picture that you see here on the right is an actual picture from that Skype call. He showed us this bridge. And the bridge divides the village in two. And it's dangerous. Children from kindergarten to second grade are not allowed to go to school because that bridge was too dangerous for them to cross. They couldn't get an education. And during the rainy season, the bridge would flood and no children could get an education if they lived on one side of the village. And my students said to me, "Mr. Soskil, that's wrong. We should do something about that." And those are magic words. We stopped everything and we took the science curriculum that I was supposed to teach and the design process that I showed you before, and we had students first design bridges out of paper, and they would test them with coins to make them fail. And they would look at where they failed, and they would redesign them to make them stronger. And then they used cardboard to design bridges, and they put rocks on top until the bridges would fail, and they designed them to make them better. And finally, after many iterations, they came up with a design that they sent over to a bridge builder in Kenya. And the bridge builder gave us a price. It would cost $3,500 US to replace that bridge. Now, I teach in an area that is economically depressed, and we don't have a whole lot of extra money floating around our community. It was going to be very difficult for my students to raise that money. But they were determined. They held bake sales, and they would sell cupcakes at lunch. We showed movies, and we couldn't charge admission to the movies, but we could sell popcorn, or take pictures with a green screen and sell them, send them to people for $1. We would send those pictures to their email. And over the course of the year, my students raised about $1,200 with the help of their fifth grade teachers, which was fantastic. But around January, two of my students had come to me, two of my fifth graders, and they said, "Mr. Soskil, what if we put up a website and we shared what we were doing so that other people knew about it? Maybe they would help us out." And through the website that they designed, we got another $2,500. So at the end of the school year, I was able to show my students this picture. It's the bridge that they designed. Because they saw a problem in the world and they were determined to solve it, and as a school, we decided that it was important that that is how the curriculum was taught. This is the kind of collaboration between technological relevance and empathy that we need going forward into the fourth industrial revolution. I truly believe that every problem in the world has a solution locked inside our students' passions. Will you help me in helping them find the keys to those locks so that they can change the world for the better? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Agradecemos la participación de Mike. Y bueno, pues como nos encontramos viviendo esta era de la cuarta revolución industrial,